The aberration that happened with the state of emergency in Rivers State, the aberration that is going on with the budgeting system in the state of emergency in Rivers State, that we are now seeing revelations that about 24 billion is used for CCTV cameras and all sorts happening. Does all of this not tie around the conversations about the lack of this respect for the rule of law in our country?
Well, for me, I see them as challenges because we operate in an atmosphere of grand impunity. The rule of law is hardly observed by governments in our country. It is as if we're still under a military dictatorship. In many instances, nobody, no lawyer, including those who are supporting emergency rule, has pointed to any section of the Constitution that allows the president to impose a state of emergency to the extent of removing or suspending elected officials. What the president is asked to do under Section 305 of the Constitution is to impose a state of emergency, to adopt extraordinary measures to restore law and order. Nowhere is it stated that the president can suspend the governor, even for one day. But for me, our courts must stand up this time around. It's not about President Tinubu or Governor Fubara. We must know where we stand. We cannot operate a democratic system of government where the courts will not make pronouncements on very serious infractions of the Constitution. Otherwise, we're going to be in crisis. I mean, take for instance, in the United States of America, President Donald Trump will have turned our country into a complete third world nation. But for the courts, but for the intervention of the courts, and these cases will not have to last for 3 months, 6 months, because what is going on in Nigeria is that all the cases in court on the emergency rule will not be decided until the restoration of the governor. And by the time the democratic structures are now put back in place, you then be told by our court, oh, these cases have become academic. The court does not engage in academic exercises. And therefore, again, we wait for the next one. In 2002, 2004, it happened. In 2006, it happened in Ekiti. Plateau in 2004. Now, it's reversed. Once the court does not define the extent of the powers of the president, when an emergency rule or a state of emergency is imposed on a state or on the entire country or on a local government, we are going to be in crisis.
When you look at everything that Femi Falana talked about in terms of how we operate in an atmosphere of impunity while we disregard the rule of law, and how our politicians hardly ever observe the rule of law in Nigeria, you will have no option but to agree with him. So if I ask you now, when you assess this Bola Tinubu's government vis-a-vis this question of state of emergency in Rivers State or adherence to the policy or the rule of law in Nigeria, what would you say is done so far? Would you agree with him? All of those people who advocated for this emergency rule, including the Attorney General of Federation, who sat next to Bola Tinubu and nodded an agreement, do you agree with them? Where in the Constitution does it say that the president has the right not only to impose a state of emergency, but to explicitly say you can discharge the government and you suspend them even for a day? This aberration and this decay in our rule of law is supported by the judiciary because they've been compromised and they've been corrupt in participating in the corruption that has caused Nigeria to get to this point. So what do you think when you look at this Bola Tinubu's government? This same Bola Tinubu, who at one point in time campaigned on the reform of the constitution, who campaigned for constitutional reforms, who talked about true federalism, state police, restructuring, who said that we need to devolve power to the state, that the federal government is too powerful. That same Bola Tinubu has now come into power and even done worse things than what his predecessors in the likes of Jonathan or Obasanjo did in terms of when they, declared a state of emergency in a state where we knew that there was war in those states, where there was killings. It's overreached and it's been aided and abetted by the corrupt politicians in the National Assembly, and the court has kept quiet, said nothing. You cannot tell me that the court cannot pick up this case as a case of emergency quickly to say, let's rule on these things. Let's look at the Constitution and say whether or not this president has a power to overreach. Donald Trump, as Femi Falana put it, would have turned America into a chaotic state. Look at all the things that he's doing, if not because of the courts. The courts put their foot down and say you have no power to overreach. Until, for example, the birthright. Until the Supreme Court now says we've ruled on this regard in favor of you. But it's not a blanket rule. Our court needs to step up. We know our court system is corrupt. We know that politicians have come to bribe our judicial system and they've corrupted the system. If the politicians can be building you judges' quarters, you're already induced. The moment you take those judges' quarters, that moment onward, you're in their pocket. Was it not recently a judge was kidnapped in Bayelsa? This decay in the system has no respect of your profession. Whether you were a judge or you are currently a judge, it has no respect. This hand of corruption gets to everybody one way or another because we're suffering the consequences of it. We're really in crisis. In case people haven't really observed it, we are in serious crisis because we have a government that is ineffective. We have a government that has no bearing. We have a government that is overreaching. We have a government that is flooded with corruption. So this aberration, as Rufai Hosseini puts it, is something that is in full display before our eyes. And if we don't speak up at this particular time where we've not got more citizens participating in government and in policy making, Bola Tinubu has shown that actually he would he will go to every length to capitalize on whatever seeming power the Constitution gives him, as long as it favors whatever he wants to do. And the same Fubara, so weak-minded, caved into an agreement that is so ungodly. But again, you can also come to that understanding that, yes, maybe literally the people didn't really vote for him. In as much as the people fought to say, no, you cannot suspend somebody we voted for. You have no right. But he's going to make an ungodly arrangement. Maybe that's part of his political plan. But for all of those people, including the Attorney General of Federation, please come and tell Nigerians, where in the Constitution does it say that the president can suspend an elected governor or lawmakers? Where in the Constitution? Are we still under the military dictatorship? Femi Falana said it. It feels as though we're still under military dictatorship. And people have called Bola Tinubu an emperor, a civilian dictator, aided and abetted by the National Assembly and mooted. They kept their mouth shut, the judiciary, because they are all compromised. And then we want to say we want to move Nigeria forward. There's no other way for us than to make sure that in 2027, we come out en masse and get these people out of power. Because we know they already put plans in process already on how to rig the election. That's why all these people are cross carpet into the APC. Not because the APC has done anything good. As a matter of fact, the APC has drawn Nigeria backward in many years now that it will take us for us to recover from this demonic rule of the APC. But yet we see politicians and political parties jumping from state to state, jumping to the APC. So go do what? Continue to stay relevant in power, because you know that if you don't join the Bola Tinubu rigging machine, you will be kicked out. They will rig you out in 2027 because the people will not want you. So you need to align with them so that electoral officers can rig your election and put you back in. That's just the game plan. And hopefully Nigerians will taught that. So put your comment in the comment section. Let us know what you think because Nigeria needs to move forward. As always, God bless you. Bye-bye for now.